Hello and welcome to Judy's Creations in Crochet. Today is March the 31st, 2022. Where did the month go? Supposedly it is spring now, but it's still pretty cold and feeling like winter where I am. So we just have to keep hoping that spring rears its head real soon because April is upon us. So today I promised that we would be looking at yarns from Expression Fiber Arts, and I wanted to do a review on their yarns. I know most of you will never buy any of their yarns. A lot of you probably prefer to buy more reasonably priced yarns from the big box store. But as I said in the very beginning, everybody does reviews and yarn hauls from the big stores, and you can go to any of those channels and find out lots of information about them. But I don't think there are very many YouTubers that focus on hand-dyed yarns, and that's why I've made my focus first finished objects, second hand-dyed yarns, and wherever possible, Canadian hand dyers. So that is why I thought I would do this video showcasing Expression Fiber Arts, because they are one yarn company that I have, as you can see, a lot of, and I have used most of them and can honestly tell you something about them. Now, you're going to see something funny happen because I created a video showing you all the yarns that I have used. There are some I haven't used. I mention them, but I don't go into any detail. And that video ended up being very long, way longer than I think any of you want to sit through. And I thought it was just too much all at once. And I tried to hurry through it, and still it was extremely long. So after viewing it, I came to the decision that I would break it in half and do part this week and do a part 2 next week. So I still have the video. I cut off the intro and the ending, and I am cutting it, and I'm going to insert it here in just a moment. But before I do insert it, I want to acknowledge the winner of my Yarny YouTube hop for spring, because I had a giveaway of this bag, and lots of comments from people that absolutely loved the butterflies and the bright colors, and they said it signified spring to them. So I'm going to insert the picture that shows where I use the random comment picker, but I'm not sure it can be easily read. So Anvita, congratulations to you, but I'm going to put her name across the screen here so it can be seen better. And Anvita mentioned how springy the bag looked, and I have a feeling that she will put it to good use. And I have seen comments from Anvita in the past, so I know she is a fairly regular follower of my YouTube channel. So congratulations once again to you, Anvita. So I'm going to cut away now to the first part of my video on the Expression Fiber Arts yarns, and I'll be back at the end. All right, so moving on to the yarns from EFA. And as I said, I'm going to start at the top end, or the heavy end, I guess you could say, and progress through the different ones. First of all, they do carry A1, I believe, bulky weight yarn. And you know me, I don't work much in bulky weight and not a lot in worsted weight either, but I have used one of their worsted weights. They have 3 different ones. They have, let me think about the names. They have enduring worsted, and they have luster worsted, and they have worsted pearlescent. And I'm going to talk about the worsted pearlescent. I have balls or skeins of each type I talk about, and I have a swatch, not a big one, but a swatch. I will tell you what it is made of, how much it costs, and I will show you an item that I have made in this yarn. I have used enough of these yarns to give you a fair assessment of which are the nicer ones and which are the ones I don't like as much. And as I said, I'm not affiliated, so I will be giving you my honest opinion. Now, this particular skein of pearlescent worsted, pearlescent worsted has 50% superwash merino and 50% mulberry silk. It has 201 meters or 220 yards in a skein. And I have a number of skeins, and I have made a few items in this. Now, I did a little bit of a swatch. In most cases, I just did double crochets. And because this is silk, it is silky. Has a sheen to it, and it tends to glide over your hook. And I have here a number 5.5 millimeter hook, which is an eye, my furls, and I will do just a wee bit of stitching. I don't want to take a lot of time stitching with them because we don't have a lot of time, but a couple of stitches is enough to show you how quickly it does work up. Now, I think it has nice stitch definition. I didn't do a variety of stitches. Most of us are into the usual everyday double crochets, half double crochets, single crochets. And the other thing I wanted to show you, because this does have just a little bit, just a teeny bit of halo. I think the important thing for a lot of you is how well does it frog. So here is, this has been made up for a while, and there may be the occasional, there's one, I got a teeny bit of a catch, but it's easy enough to put my finger in it and pull it out. But you can see how well that it is frogging. So I really like their pearlescent yarn, both the worsted and the fingering, which I'll show you in just a second. I love working with them. They feel nice. When you're all done, they feel nice. The silkiness is really nice. Here's an item that I made in the pearlescent worsted. Okay, and you can see the stitches. These are all double crochets, but you know, if you used a different stitch, you would definitely see it quite well. And the other thing I want to say about the pearlescent is, I might not have blocked the cowl, or the infinity scarf, but when you block pearlescent, you get a lot of give, or you might call it stretch. You get a fair bit in whatever it is you make. Now, I also wanted to show at the same time the pearlescent fingering. They're identical in make, so the same amount of 50% and 50%. The difference is, of course, it is thinner, and you get more in a skein. This is one of their larger ones, 503 meters or 550 yards. Now that's a good 100 yards more in a skein than most fingering yarns, as you will see as I go through the rest. And once again, feels just as good. It's just thinner. Maybe you'd like to see a comparison in the two. Here is, there you go. There's the worsted, and there's the fingering. And it stitches equally as nice, so I won't take the time to stitch on this one. We got a little tangle here. It frogs just as easy as the other. Stitch definition to me is, in fact, pretty much all of these have decent stitch definition. And I do have one item stitched in this yarn. You would have seen it a few weeks back, and that is this, it is kind of a boomerang shaped shawl. See the bottom edge? And this is by a designer that I'm going to highlight next month. But this did stretch very, very nicely when I blocked it. And maybe you can tell it has a little bit of a sheen and a little bit of a halo. Very soft, very silky feeling. Now, moving down the line from worsted, I have not bought, or even, I might have a skein of their enduring waisted, but I have not used it, and I don't know why I bought it. And I definitely have not bought their luster worsted, and you'll hear more about luster a little later on as we progress. So next I want to move on to DK weight. So in the DK weight, I'm going to start with, since it's really in front of me here, is the Sparkle DK. Now, you've seen it just recently. You saw me make this Jazzy Barista shawl, and it has two kinds of Sparkle DK, the gray, which I'm showing there, and this very, very pretty one called Naughty List, I believe. And again, it stretched pretty good when I blocked it. Not as much as Pearlescent. I think Pearlescent blocks the biggest of any of the ones that I've used. And I enjoyed using all of these yarns so far. So the Sparkle DK has 60% superwash merino wool and 26% nylon, 10% baby alpaca, and 4% metallic. So that's got some really nice yarn in it. It has 251 meters or 275 yards. So a decent size skein for a DK, because usually it's in the low 200s, 275 yards in a skein. And here is the sample worked up, and I'm not sure what size of hook I used on it, probably a 5. They tell you the recommended size, but I often use a totally different size than they say. It just depends what you want to get. If you want to get a more open look, if you want more drape in what you're making, you would use a bigger size. So anyway, here's the DK, and I'm going to stitch with it. And you'll see that I don't have any problems stitching with it. This particular hook this particular hook is a pleasure to work with. I'll start back here. Okay, so I have to keep an eye like where things are on the screen. It's the eye of the camera isn't where I think it should be. But you can see it's just moving right along. This is actually slow for me because it's awkward stitching right here in front of the camera. But anyway, it works up very nicely. I've never had any problems with it. I would say that it still has good stitch definition, although it doesn't maybe show quite as obvious as the pearlescent, but it is thicker than the fingering, and these stitches, maybe I did it on a small enough hook to bring them in close, because you know the blue sweater that's made with Blizzard, that is a Sparkle DK, and I could make the stitches close enough to be able to wear it without a tank underneath. I like to make it nice and snug so you can't see through it. Next thing is, how well does it frog? I never have trouble frogging this one. You can see, even with that metallic in there, it doesn't get hung up. It frogs very nicely. And one thing I forgot on the last two was the cost. But so far, everything I've shown you has been, and I'll give all of this in US dollars. I'm not going to try and transcribe it to, or change it to Canadian currency. When you go on their site, you're going to see US prices. So all three of the ones I've mentioned, the pearlescent worsted, the pearlescent fingering, and now the Sparkle DK, are all $30 a hank. And of course, they're all different sizes. So that's the Sparkle DK, and you saw the Jazzy Barista, you saw that when I made it, and my blue sweater, all made out of this. So you know I like it. I have used it I have 2 or 3 other things upstairs that I have made out of this. Then, because I'm showing you the Sparkle DK, I wanted to show you the Sparkle Fingering at the same time, because they are the same yarn, except that they have a different weight, different thickness. So there is Sparkle DK, and here is Sparkle Fingering. A noticeable difference in the thickness. Definitely when you're feeling it, you can see a difference. You'd almost need 2 of these to make that. But the composition of the yarn is the same. It still has 60% merino, 26% nylon, 10% baby alpaca, and 4% metallic. But because this is fingering, there is 400 meters or 437 yards in the hank. And this was kind of busy, so maybe it wasn't the best one to use, but there is the stitch swatch. This is going to be busy when I figure out what I'm going to make with it. This was one of their Christmas colors. It's called Candy Canes. And even though it is thinner, it stitches up just as nice. I think this is a 4. Yeah, this is a 4 I'm using on it. I brought a bunch of hooks with things so you could see how they work. And I have mostly brought my Leto hooks because I have fallen in love with them. And unfortunately, this particular Etsy shop, the man and wife that make it live in the Ukraine, so their shop is closed right now. They updated, they are safe, not in the best circumstances, but they are safe, and hopefully they won't be in this situation for any length of time, but it doesn't look good. Anyhow, you can see that this is stitching up as easy as can be. And it also frogs very, very easy. Now, the sparkle fingering is fairly new. I think just last fall for Christmas, for the Christmas season, is when they brought this out. Maybe they had a lot of requests because people love the Sparkle DK. They brought out the sparkle fingering. So I have not made an item out of it. So what I did was this weekend, you won't believe how many things I started this weekend. I have whips all over my house, and you know I'm not into a lot of whips, but hopefully I'll have time to talk about that in a bit. But I did start making something. I won't show you the whole thing, but with this particular sparkle fingering, it's called Peace on Earth. And I really like it because it's pretty close to navy. It's tonal, it has changes in color. And I really, really enjoyed working with it. I didn't want to put it down, but I had some other things I had to get ready for this, this podcast. So I can recommend this. Again, this is a $30 skein like the others. And it feels really nice. When you're working with it, it feels nice and soft. Yeah, nice and soft. So that's the second DK that I had to show you, and it's fingering comparable one. Then to go on in the DK line is the Alpaca Silk DK. Now, this is, again, a busy one, Alpaca Silk DK, and I stitched up a sample of it, and I don't know if I'm using the right size hooks with most of these. This is a 5. Well, it is a DK. You could use a 5 with it. I'll make a few stitches and see how it goes. It might be bigger than what I originally used. I might have used a 4 or 4.5. I'm doing all doubles just because I don't want to remember what stitch. Again, you can see that it's stitching up without any problem, but that would be partly the composition. Alpaca Silk DK has 50% baby alpaca and 50% mulberry silk. Nothing but softness in this. Now, it does have a bit of a halo. Can you see the little bit of a halo here and up here? And this isn't twisted as tight as some. So once in a while, I can't complain about it, but once in a while I do find, especially if you have a more pointed hook, once in a while it does split, although I can't remember having any difficulties with it. Now let's see how it shows up in, because of that halo. How does it frog? Doesn't seem to be giving me any trouble with frogging. That's always a plus in my mind. I mean, I can frog anything if I have to, but it's nice when you don't have to play tug of war with it. So that frogs very, very nicely. And alpaca and silk, it doesn't have the same sheen of silk that the pearlescent did, but it is very, very soft. Now this one is a little more expensive with alpaca in it. This one is $33 for a skein, and it has 210 meters or 230 yards, which is typical for a DK. Now, while I'm talking alpaca silk, I wanted to do the alpaca silk lace at the same time. This is the only lace weight that I've ever really worked with. There is a difference in the texture of these two. Just a minute, I'm going to turn the heat off. There is a difference in texture and the way it is wound. Can it focus? Come back out. Maybe that's a better focus there. This has several ply in it, but they're twisted a little more. This one has, it looks like 2 ply, and it's twisted quite tightly, but it's twisted in such a way that to me it gives a texture. You can see the ply more readily in lace weight. And I have a 3.5 millimeter hook here, and that's probably what I made this sample with. And you know, I can even see the texture. Can you see the texture in those, in the finished product? And it's somewhat loose. Now, I mean, it could go down in hook size. I don't think more than once have I ever stitched with smaller than a 3.5. I have used a 3. Not my favorite thing to use, even 3.5. This is all wound up. That's why I'm having problems. I need to undo a bit of a knot here, so I'm not going to get much stitching done. Again, it stitches easy enough because it is silky, but I just then got caught in the wrong place. So I can't say lace weight is one of my favorites, and I'll tell you something about it in just a minute, but here's how it frogs. Not a problem with frogging, thank goodness. Now, the only time I use this, oh, now we got a little bit of a hang up. Yeah, we will occasionally, with this lace weight alpaca, have a frog. There we go, a frogging problem. Now, here's the only time I used it. You may recall this item I showed a while back. A beautiful wrap. It's actually quite narrow, almost more like a scarf. I wish I'd made it a wee bit wider. But this is Alpaca DK in here. And I didn't have what I wanted to go with it, and I really like these colors with it. So you can see this purple is this purple. But I used 2 strands. I used 2 strands of the purple, and this other one I think is called Canvas. I used 2 strands of it. So with doubling these 2 up, they came close, but not exactly, to the weight of this one. And so the only way I will ever use, I don't have a lot of lace weight. I do have some, but I do have another skein of this purple. So I'll be putting these 2 together and using them double. For me, now there are some of you out there I know that do very, very fine work with even crochet threads and make lace doilies and other very intricate things. No, I can't go. I like thin weights. I don't like the heavy, like worsted enough. But this is a little thinner only because of mostly the hook. So I use this double. I won't say I'm a big fan. That's why we have a mess, because this is wound double in the ball. And this is double. See, it's all wound double from when I was using it. And that's the only way I will use it. I am not a big fan of this textured look. That's just me. I mean, it doesn't harm the yarn. It doesn't make it bad. It's just, that's just not a look I really like. So this is the item I made with the alpaca, and very pretty and extremely soft. I decided to keep this in my own stash of items because it is so comfortable, and I will double it up and wear it like a scarf type thing. It is so beautiful and colors that I absolutely love. So that's Alpaca Silk, and I believe it's $33 for both the DK and the lace weight. Okay, moving on into, that's all I have for DK. They do have something called North DK. I've never bought it. It doesn't appeal to me from the look of it online. And they also have Dewy DK, and I have some Dewy DK. I haven't ever used it. I'm not sure what I'm going to make with it at this point yet, and it does feel quite nice. It is your typical merino nylon blend, but it has a little bit of silk in it, but I can't say anything about those two. So what I want to move on to next is the sport weight yarns, and they have, I think they have 4. I have 3 listed here that I can tell you about. And the first one is their Mirage Sport. This item I'm wearing is made in 3 different colors of Mirage Sport. And here is the sample. By the way, I haven't found one yarn yet from EFA that doesn't have great drape. Can't tell with this little wee sample. But, I mean, the drape is always very, very nice. I mean, sometimes you need to use a little bigger yarn hook. Stitch definition probably isn't as great as some. It does have a teeny bit of halo. Let's look at the composition of it. Mirage Sport is made up of 70% superwash merino wool, 10% baby camel, that's even getting more luxurious, 10% cashmere, and 10% mulberry silk. I mean, it's got a little bit of all of the lovely fibers in it. And it's $34 for a skein. And it has 320 meters or 350 yards in a skein. And this was the hook I was using because it was still in the cake. And again, I have to tell you that it has, there's no problem stitching with it. It slides. I mean, with all those things, cashmere and silk and camel, they had at one time a lace weight yarn, I think. Oh no, that was yak. Oh, they have camel in their Oasis. We'll talk about that later. But anyway, camel is the more expensive yarn, but you can see this is working up no problem. You can see, I guess, this is pretty open, so the stitches are pretty evident. It blocks very nicely, and it frogs perfectly. No problem with frogging. Now, in fact, after I made this, I said, you see, it's a wee bit heavier than fingering, and I tried to make a fingering weight sweater, if you recall, and I said, forget that. But this has a little more weight to it than a fingering. But even though it's wool, it has 70% merino. It has lots of other things in it as well. And it's very, very soft, comfortable. And so I decided that I am going to make a sweater, and I bought a neutral color of yarn. I have enough that when I get back into my sweater making days, I'm going to make a sweater with this Mirage because I think it'll be just warm, just thick enough to be warm, but not super bulky to be uncomfortable and hot. I don't like a real heavy sweater. I like something in the middle. And this is going to be perfect, just perfect. Next, I can't find my sample. I had a sample of the next one. And I brought all these things down to oh, there it is. Okay. The next sport weight is called luster sport. Now you noticed I mentioned luster worsted, and I didn't go into depth because I thought I would cover everything when I did the luster sport. Luster sport, again, is one of those ones that you can see, there. See the texture? So right off the bat, it's not one of my favorites. Stitching with it did not seem to be, I need something smaller. Oh, it's a 4. The only thing smaller is 3.5, which I don't feel like using. It does not seem to be a problem working with it. It works like most of the rest. It slides on the hook pretty easy. But in working with it, I don't know, it's just me. The feel of this is not the same. It's just, maybe because it's the texture or ridges in the yarn, it doesn't feel as nice. I forgot to tell you what it has in it. It's 70% superwash merino, 10% baby camel. Whoops, that's Mirage Sport. Whoops. We need luster. Here we are. 50% merino and 50% tencel. Well, that's a pretty good, I mean, it's a material people talk about because it's a more natural fiber. I don't have one, let's see, 7 goes into that. That won't tell me. I don't have the information on the size of the actual cake with me because what I have is the tag for a bag of minis that I got, but I imagine it's around that 400 mark, like a lot of, maybe 350, like a lot of the ones this size. So I will look at, oh, and the price of it is $24, so a little more reasonable. And it frogs just as good as anything else frogs, so that's not a problem. It's just, to me, I don't like the final feel of it compared to the luscious feel of all of the others. It has a, not rougher in that it's scratchy, but rougher in that it doesn't have a smooth texture to the fiber. And I had decided I was going to make something. I started 4 items on the weekend, partly for this video. And I decided I had this package of minis, 7 colors, and I was going to make the Just Feel Festive shawl. And here is what I started. I finished 1 ball and I went into the second. And first of all, it's too light of a weight for this project. But second of all, at this point, I could feel it. And I thought, this doesn't have a luxurious feel at all like any of the other things I've worked with. I wouldn't wear it myself, and I wasn't enjoying working with it. So I'm going to tell you that, in all honesty, I'm going to frog this whole thing, and I'm going to put all of my luster sport in a bag away out of the way for a while, and someday I might come back to it. Maybe if I held it double, because it's not a heavy sport weight, not compared to this one. Maybe holding it double, I would like it better, but I just can't tell you I like the feel of it. So I'm glad I never ever ordered the worsted. So I have a package of skeins that are a package of minis that I'll be putting aside to who knows when. It's not on the top of my list of things to make, because I started this on the weekend. I started the navy one on the weekend, and I have one more to show you that I started on the weekend. And of all the three, I don't care for this one at all. So that's my feelings on Luster Sport. Not something I'll be buying any more of. Okay, and to finish off the sport weight, I have twisted tweed, and I have a bag of little balls of twisted tweed that are left from when I made this item. If you remember this item with the funny shape and all the 7 colors, it was part of a cowl that I participated in, and as I was working on it, I thought, oh, I love the feel of this. And I may make a multicolored sweater out of it, or I'm taking this apart. I don't like the shape, and I'm going to use these yarns again and make either a scarf or a shawl or maybe even a top. But here is the yarn, sport weight. Now look at that. That has the twist in it as well, and you can see the texture. But when I stitch with it, it feels good. I like the feel of it. Now, let me, it just really feels nice. Not quite as nice as this one, but it feels nice. And it's made up of 42 fine merino wool and 43% superwash merino wool and 15% Donegal. I'm not too sure what Donegal is. Another type of wool, obviously. Another type of lamb. And the ball has, or the skein has 351 meters or 384 yards. And the cost of a hank is $29.50. And I really like how this works up. We got so many hooks here now, I don't know which one is which, and it doesn't really matter. And I'll do a couple of stitches while I'm talking. I do like the feel of this. I do like working with it. I don't have any problems with it splitting on me. It is I like tweeds. Definitely a nice tweed, nice feel, and no problem with the stitching. And no problem with the frogging, thank goodness, because I am going to take that entire shawl out and make something else. So again, this is nice, and it is the kind of fiber that I would consider making myself a sweater out of it. Now it's a little bit, it's thinner than this. They're both sport weights. But this one is thinner than this one. So I might be inclined to hold 2 together. In fact, I've given some thought to doing what Gary at Urban Yarn does, and that's putting 2 together of different colors and seeing how that turns out. So I just may experiment with that, with this yarn. So that is a very nice yarn. As I said, I would wear something made in it. Okay, so that's the end of sport weight. So that part of the video covered all of the worsted weight, the DK, and sport weight yarns that I have been using and am comfortable to say something about. And already you see I have some that are favorites and others that I don't like as well. So I hope you found it interesting, and by cutting it shorter, I hope it wasn't too boring. And I really hope you will return next week when I cover all of the fingering weight yarns, which is the weight that I think there are more of, and I think people use a little more. They're definitely the weight that I use the most of. and there are quite a few in that category to discuss next week. So hope you'll be back to see more, and until then, happy hooking.